What is going on, guys? We're back today talking some more NHL 19, and what are we now? 9 days away? Is that right? 9 days away. If you have EA Access, you'll be getting it next Thursday, possibly next Wednesday. They always say 5 days ahead of time, and then EA Access comes out and it's like, oh, you can play the game on Wednesday. It's like, works for me. You only get 10 hours, so they're like, whatever, take it a day early, right? They get it all loaded up and everything properly. If you're on PlayStation, well, you're out of luck, which is, well, I got an Xbox because, Xbox, PlayStation. I don't even want to get started about PlayStation because today we're over here to talk about our 5 biggest snubs of the EA Sports NHL top 50 player ratings. They are all out now. If you haven't seen our previous videos or if you have not checked out the EA site, it will go through number 50 to number 1, and there's always going to be snubs. I have 5 guys today that I think got snubbed. They are pretty big snubs. If I missed some guys, and I'm sure I did, go ahead and let me know down below. Let me know some guys you feel like got snubbed as well. Keep in mind, you can only get 50 players in that top 50, so there's always going to be somebody getting snubbed. Quick side note before we get started, Antti Raanta. I know people are going to bring him up. He only played 47 games last season. That's the most he's ever played in one season. And that's a big thing that EA messes with, especially with goalies. If you don't play a whole lot, they don't give you a high rating. I don't understand the logic behind it sometimes, but they don't. I understand it, I guess, because you can't really, just because, say a goalie is a backup and he plays 30 games in a season, and he's a backup, so he's getting a lot of the easier matchups, and he's got a better save percentage, goals against average because of it. So I can understand why they don't want to just hurry up and bump somebody up because of that. Even though Raanta was the starter last season, a few other guys that I was considering for the list that didn't quite make it too was Rantanen, Carlson, Stahl, Lee. Stahl had a really good season, and it wasn't talked about. It was pretty crazy. 42 goals out of the guy. Marc-Andre Fleury, another one people might be surprised didn't quite make this list. I was thinking pretty heavily about it as well. The season he had last season was phenomenal. I can completely see the understanding, and people want to see him on the top 50 as well. But speaking of the goaltending, we talked about Antti Raanta, John Gibson. Gibson is the sole reason I understand why Raanta is not going to get a good rating, because EA's been shaming Gibson for years now for the exact same reason. But he ain't splitting starts with Freddie Anderson anymore. I don't know if EA knows that. I don't know if they've been watching hockey lately, but the Ducks ain't this dominant carry their goalie team. Maybe they was at one point in time, but they're not there at that time these days. And Freddie Anderson's on the Maple Leafs. I know they're not quite sure if he's on the Maple Leafs. I could tell by the rating they gave Freddie Anderson. They might have thought he was still splitting starts with John Gibson based on it. I understand it. But he ain't splitting starts anymore, just a heads up for their EA. So time to get the fact checks out for everyone. For goalies that have played over 100 games the last 3 seasons, Gibson is second among goalies in save percentage with a .924 save percentage. Second among goalies with a 2.26 goals against average. Also second. You know who this is behind? Funny story about who this is behind. None other than Antti Raanta. The difference is Raanta played about 50 less games played than Gibson. Again, we brought up the games played. Gibson's seen 50 games 2 seasons ago, 52, and he's seen 60 games this season. He's in the starter role. He's played plenty of games. The reason he's not in the top 50, I don't quite understand. But like I said for Raanta, 102 games over 3 seasons. We'll call that the Gibson effect. You start playing 60 games for 2 or 3 seasons, you just have to knock on EA's door, let them know, hey, I'm on Arizona, we're not very good, but I'm still pretty good at goaltending, top 50, please. Just gotta send them a nice letter in the mail, they'll understand. Our second player on the list, David Pastrnak. Pastrnak just came off an 80-point season. I already know where this one's going. You're already typing down below. You're typing. He played on a stacked line. La-di-da-di-da. He's not that good. He played on his stacked line. You know what I hate about this argument? Everything. Panarin. I will talk about this day in and day out until somebody gives me an explanation. Everybody told me, everybody said when that trade went through, people were actually skeptical. Some people were like, oh, that Patrick or Artemi Panarin for Brandon Saad trade was, I don't know if that was a good deal or not. Because Patrick Kane carried Artemi Panarin. You never heard the end of it. Panarin's good because Kane carries him. Panarin's good, Kane carried him. There was some people that say, oh yeah, Panarin's good. Now he comes to the Blue Jackets. There ain't nobody carrying Artemi Panarin on the Blue Jackets. I tell you right now. And look at the season he just put up. And then you look at the Panarin-Kane thing for a second time. Artem Anisimov had 30 points this season. I don't know if he played with Kane the entire season, but he was sandwiched between that Artemi Panarin and Patrick Kane line the season before, and he had 54 points. You look at Patrick Hornquist. He plays a lot of seasons. He's played a lot of seasons, I should say, with Sidney Crosby. 53 points is the most he's ever had in his career. My point is, just because you go out there and play with good players doesn't just say, oh, you're playing with this guy and this guy. Instantly, yep, you're going to get 80 points. No, you still have to be a great player to put up 80 points. It doesn't happen by accident. Nobody's carrying you to 80 points. Please bring up a player in the past 5 seasons you can look at and say, that guy was carried to 80 points. There isn't one. Fact of the matter is, look who Connor McDavid played with. Who was his other left wing? I didn't see him in the top. I didn't see him up there with Leon Draisaitl. And who was his left wing? Please tell me it was Nugent-Hopkins. He didn't get carried to no 80 points. I don't even remember who it was. Pasternak at the end of the day has 70 plus points in 2 straight seasons. Marchand played with him 2 seasons ago. Did he? Did Marchand play with him? I don't remember. So let's say Marchand did play with Pasternak the last 2 seasons. The last 2 seasons of Marchand's career have been undoubtedly the best 2 seasons of his career. So is that a coincidence? Maybe they played together and, oh, what do you know? Maybe they just play well together. Has anybody ever thought of that? Instead of saying players get carried by players, maybe they just mesh well together. But if he didn't play with Marchand, Pasternak still had 70 points last season. He had a great season. I don't know who he played with. Who carried him that wasn't Brad Marchand last season? Am I right? My final pet peeve with this is, when did Patrice Bergeron become a offensive juggernaut? Everybody's talking about how he got carried by his other player. When did Patrice Bergeron become notorious for carrying a winger? Please tell me. Might be notorious for carrying the defense or something, but carrying a winger? I don't think so. Pasternak, not to mention, he was top 50 last year. He got a downgrade for playing phenomenal this season. I disagree, yeah. Our third player is Corey Crawford. This one, if Pasternak didn't trigger a little bit, Corey Crawford definitely is going to. That's not the intention of the video. I'm just trying to stick up for some players I feel like didn't get the best player ratings that they should have gotten. I'm trying to defend them the best I can because I know there's going to be people saying, oh, you shouldn't have it because of this or this. And it's like, oh, I got to kind of contradict and defend the reason why I do believe that person does get it. That's the reason we do it like this. Not just to be like, in your face, you're wrong. Just trying to, defend the players that I'm putting on the list. And Corey Crawford, I feel like it's just a general hockey fan thing. You just got to hate the Blackhawks and you got to say Corey Crawford gets carried. Well, the Blackhawks missed the playoffs last season. So I guess the Blackhawks coach needs fired or something? Because I'm not understanding. Because Crawford had a .929 save percentage, a .227 goals against average last season in the games he played. And somehow, the Blackhawks couldn't dominate the league with Kane and fellow top 50 player according to EA, Jonathan Toews. That's sarcasm, by the way. The Blackhawks had a 16-9 record with Crawford in the net last season. The record without him, 17-30. They weren't even close to relevant when Crawford wasn't in the net. So if Crawford's been getting carried all these years, why wasn't the backup getting carried last season? Crawford was out of action. Why wasn't the backup getting carried? Anyone can be carried, right? Last time I checked, getting carried, anybody can do it. Was the defense just terrible? Because I guarantee if Crawford plays all season, Duncan Keith's like 25th on EA's top 50 player ratings list. He wasn't, though, and he missed the list. What a coincidence. There's too many double standards around this one for me to be convinced that Crawford deserved a downgrade from last year, and he was. He was a top 50 player last season. He got a downgrade this season. Hate me for it, I guess, right? But I'm sticking up for Corey Crawford on this one. Speaking of sticking up for players previously on the top 50 players list last season, Jack Eichel. What happened to Jack Eichel? Another player, like I said, top 50 last season. Eichel is once again near a point per game player for the games he did play. Again, he did miss like 15, 20 games for the second straight season. He's used the forgotten 2015 draft pick. There was so many good players in that draft. Did we just forget about Jack Eichel? Did we forget that he was the second round pick and there was actually somewhat of a debate whether Eichel would be taking over McDavid? Not like it was a debate for a good time, like, the Patrick Laine, Auston Matthews thing. Did people just assume because Connor McDavid was taking number 1 overall and now he's the best player on the planet that Jack Eichel's just terrible? Did EA forget about him because he's on Buffalo and they've been having terrible seasons? Jack Eichel's been playing fantastic hockey, and for him to get a downgrade or just miss the top 50 this year, which I'm going to call a downgrade, it's kind of hard to believe. I get it, he's on Buffalo. I get he was like a -25. I get it, he couldn't win a face-off at the center on the other side of the dot would tell him exactly what he's going to do before he dropped the puck. But besides that, Jack Eichel is a fantastic player, and for him not to make the list, a little bit surprising there. And then last but definitely not least, number 5, Matthew Barzal. 85 points in his rookie season. The reason Rantanen doesn't make this list, I guess you can make the argument for Barzal as well, but Rantanen didn't make it because he had 39 points last season. He had 80-something this season, so you had that bad season the season before, and then you had that breakout season, so you understand, does he deserve to make the list? Absolutely. Did EA put him on it? No, because that's probably the reason he had 39 points last season. This wasn't the case for Barzal, though. Barzal was on his rookie season, and he had 85 points. And the thing I don't like about this is I understand, I've always explained to you guys why this happens. The rookies, the young guys, the guys that haven't proven themselves, they always seem to get the shaft when it comes to player ratings. But at the same time, you see guys like Auston Matthews, Patrick Laine, Connor McDavid. It's almost like where they do make the ratings the next year, the very next year after the first season. It's almost like they play the hype game. They play the hype game, the popularity contest, which is weird because Barzal seems to be a fairly popular player. But when you see guys like Patrick Laine, you see guys like Connor McDavid coming to the league, they don't hesitate on giving them a good overall. They're like, oh, this guy's good because, well, everybody else says so. But for some reason, Matthew Barzal drops 85 points in his rookie season. Something Matthews didn't do, something Laine didn't do, something McDavid didn't do. Doesn't get garnered a top 50 spot. little bit surprised by that one. I think Matthew Barzal is going to be a fantastic player for years to come. I guess just not this year, according to NHL 19, but that's all right. Those are my 5 players. Like I said, there's a lot of different players. I even thought about Lundqvist for a little bit. A lot of different players that could have made this list, but those are my 5. I'd like to hear some guys you might have thought were snubbed as well that I did not mention. As always, though, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.